And as more companies adopt AI, one concern keeps coming up: who actually owns the information being fed into these tools? Goal 17 is a new Canadian-built platform taking a different approach, putting privacy and data ownership back into the hands of the user. So we're joined now in studio by the company's founder, Aaron Williamson. And of course, Tyler Morty is still here. Aaron, it's good to have you in studio. Thanks so much for joining us. This is an interesting conversation. I'm wondering, do you feel like enough people are talking about the ethics of AI?
It seems like it's the side conversation, if it happens at all. You hear things about all of the bad outcomes from AI that might happen, and then we move on to how great it is and we should build more data centers.
Push it to the side, right? Yeah. So what was the main problem you were trying to solve when you created Goal 17?
So my work for years has been in strategy and decision making, and the larger the organization, the more distributed the knowledge is in the organization. I started playing with AI to see if that could help speed up the flow of information within groups in a strategy process or a decision-making process, and very quickly ran into the fact that most of the organizations I was working with weren't allowed to use any of the tools because they were either seen as insecure or didn't adhere to any of their data or privacy policies.
Interesting. I wonder, how is Goal 17, for people who maybe have not heard of Goal 17 yet, how is it different from tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, other AI systems?
So from the use perspective, I heard you saying earlier that we're in the phase of AI trickling down into actually useful use cases in organizations. I think that's the first piece. A lot of those tools that you mentioned are very general, and they're kind of meant to do anything. And what you see happening in the Chinese market, for example, is they're taking a much more focused approach on how do you get containers on ships faster or things like that. So this is a much more focused application. I would call this applied AI. So.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I guess my interest from a global investing perspective is how is AI perceived differently within the different jurisdictions? For example, China, we had that big DeepSeek moment last year, where everybody freaked out and we had a sell-off in some of the big American hyperscalers and that type of thing. And so how is I assume you look globally and look at how the interaction is happening there. How is the perception of, let's say, and I know China is pursuing a very different strategy, which is all about monetization and efficiency and diffusion, to use that word, whereas America seems to be focusing on innovation and having the best large language model. That's sort of a broader question, I know, but how do you see the different jurisdictions interacting with each other?
Yeah, so a lot of my work is in Europe, which is a big part of what shaped this decision. Is there was obviously a lot more concerns about privacy in that market than there is in the North American market. But obviously the events of the last year have shaped it a lot as well, which is that with all of the threats from the US administration on all of its allies, what I'm seeing in Europe is one government after another making declarations about getting off of the US tech stack and moving to open source software.
Yeah.
When it comes to people's data, I think a lot of people, the idea of your data being used or sold is very scary. I myself choose to put my head in the sand and not think about it because it's very scary. But for Goal 17's goal of trying to keep that data private, where is it stored by Goal 17 and how is it stored?
So we have two flavors. One is just in Canadian data centers and making sure that all the data stays here. But a lot of our work is in kind of sensitive intergovernment negotiations. So, for example, Crown Indigenous participation for some of the kind of major projects that are going on. In that case, it is literally in the box. All processing happens inside a kind of carry-on compatible data center that you can take on the plane with you.
Oh, it's like a physical box.
Which has helped to explain some of the privacy things in some contexts. I think people glaze over when you start talking about where your data resides and everything. When you can point to a box on the table and say, the data doesn't go anywhere, that's something that you can wrap your head around.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's the product itself. It's actually a piece of hardware that you've designed with your company.
Yes.
And you bring it to the organization or the individual, and it's how and what's the install like on that? Is it like? Is it literally okay?
So for example, in a strategy process or a workshop or something like that, It has a network of kind of audio
Right.
sensors that bring in all of the data,
Right.
and then it kind of surfaces the insights as people
Right.
go through the process.
Very
Okay.
precious box then.
Yeah, no
Obviously, there's a
kidding.
lot of security around
That's
that.
why it's check-in, not checked
Yes.
luggage.
Yes, you keep it with you at all times.
Right.
When it comes to the industry as a whole and how the industry is working around privacy data, do you think most companies are moving in the right direction or closer to the wronger direction, or is it maybe just not a priority?
We're in a real pinch. I think if you hear people talk about digital sovereignty, Europe is a bit ahead of the curve on that. I think there's a bit of a panic situation all the way up to the satellites they're using. If you look at Canada, we are very dependent on US technology companies. Even when it's sort of a Canadian cloud, it's still an American company running it. So our options are fairly limited, and our government is almost entirely on US data providers. So there's a bit of a rush to figure out how do we make any kind of sovereign tech.
Yeah.
So this is a Canadian company. It's founded by you. You've designed this technology, and when we look at sort of our market and trying to reach international markets, where do you see the highest sort of ROE that you could do with this company?
My first sales have all been in Europe.
In Europe, okay. So Europe is
And I think that's Canadian technologists have always looked to the US. We're very tightly integrated with the US. I have previously been very tightly integrated with the US. I think there's a reluctance to move away from it because of so much of our capital comes from the US. But I think it's worth Canadian innovators knowing that there's a huge market in Europe that is open to Canadian products.
Is the hope as well to expand, further into Canada?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Canada first.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
But Europe is
Europe's
a great market.
Right.
So interesting. Okay, that's all the time we have. Really appreciate you coming in studio and breaking that down for us. Thanks so much.